Hi there, and welcome to the Mindful Marathon podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Quirk, a run coach and pediatrician. Mindful Marathon is all about helping runners of all types to run their own race. Whether you are a seasoned runner or you're just getting started, I want to let you know that you're welcome here and that you're in the right place. Hi, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindful Marathon podcast. Today we are on episode 53, and we're going to be talking all about the 10K distance. So the 10K is often overlooked, I think. So it's, sitting between the short and speedy 5K distance and then the longer, sometimes maybe like a bucket list half marathon or marathon. And I think sometimes, yeah, it just gets overlooked. And so today I'm going to make the case for why the 10K might just be the perfect race distance for you, depending on where you are in your training right now. We'll talk about why it's a special distance, who it's for, the science behind why it's a really great distance to train for, and how training for the 10K can actually change your running beyond just training for that distance. There are some common misconceptions about it that we'll go through, and I'm going to give you some practical tips to train for one if you have one upcoming. And if you're thinking about tackling the distance soon, I've got a special program that I'll share more about later that is enrolling now. So stay tuned for that at the end. So, why is the 10K a special distance? So, I think it's approachable, yet it is still challenging. So it doesn't require the long runs of half marathon and full marathon training, but still we need to approach the distance with respect. It's longer than a 5K. And I think that most people can do the distance. You know that I am a believer that most of us can be runners if we are just given the right tools to get started. And I think that most people can cover this distance. So a 10K is 6.2 miles. The other thing about it is that it's time efficient. So if you are a busy person, I think you can safely train for this in 3 to 4 days a week. So it's really perfect if you are a busy professional, if you are a parent, if you're juggling multiple things, we can really train well for this distance on 3 or 4 days a week. And if you like to do other sports, if you are a cyclist, a swimmer, you play tennis regularly, you do yoga regularly, this is a really nice distance to train for because you will still have time to do all of those other things that you enjoy doing. So I think the 10K is really, it's like the fitness sweet spot. So it improves both our endurance and our speed. And it's great for building a stronger aerobic base while also learning pacing. So we'll get into a little bit more about aerobic base and pacing in a minute. But first, we're going to go through who is the 10K perfect for. I think it's actually perfect whether you are a beginner or you're an experienced runner. So for beginners, maybe you've already done a 5K, but you have some fears and doubts about jumping all the way to a half marathon, right? Like going from 3.1 miles to 13.1 miles can be a bit of a jump. So this is a nice in-between challenge that you can take on before you make that big jump. For returning runners, so maybe those coming back from a break, coming back from injury, 10K training is enough structure without being overwhelming. Again, like sometimes these big distance goals can feel overwhelming if you're starting from a lower amount of time spent on your feet, a lower amount of mileage. If you're just coming out of base training and you feel like a half marathon is just a little bit too much and you don't want to push it, 10K is perfect. And then for my experienced runners, training for a 10K is a great chance to really hone in on your speed. Sharpen your speed, dial in your pacing, and set a benchmark for future longer distance goals. Next, we're going to go through the science behind the 10K. So, if you like to learn about running physiology, this part is for you. If not, just bear with me. I'm only going to spend a few minutes here, and we can always take a deep dive offline. But the science behind the 10K. So, as I talked about in the base building episode, if you haven't listened to the base building episode, scroll back a couple episodes and maybe listen to that one. So, we're talking all about building aerobic efficiency. So, training for the 10K increases your body's ability to take in, transport, and use oxygen, which is the cornerstone of endurance performance. And really, this training in the aerobic zone helps across all distances. So from the 5K all the way to the marathon, we really want to work this aerobic system of metabolism. Now, I'm going to talk for a minute about lactate threshold. You may have heard of lactate threshold. You may have run intervals at lactate threshold. So the 10K pace is close to where lactate begins to accumulate in the blood. And training at and right around this pace improves your ability to run faster for longer without getting tired. It's a very nice speed interval to train at so that you develop efficiency across all of the distances. So the adaptations that you make during 10K training, and especially doing some training intervals at lactate threshold, helps to improve your aerobic base. It gives you a stronger running economy, better stamina to hold out over the longer distances. And like I said, this benefits you for shorter races like a 5K, but it also benefits you for longer races like a half or a full marathon. So, how does training for a 10K change your running? I think in three important ways: consistency, confidence, community. So, three C's. So, first, it builds consistency. It teaches the discipline of having a structured plan without the heavy volume of longer races. So, I alluded to this before. If you are a very busy person, sometimes the training cycle for a half marathon or a full marathon can feel quite daunting amidst all of the other things that are happening in life. And there are seasons for everything, and it may not be a season to commit to something like that. But a 10K training, that can fit in very nicely if you have a busy schedule and still build consistency and give you a great stepping off point for the future if you want to do a half marathon or full marathon in the near or distant future. The second C is confidence, building confidence. So it is a nice stepping stone in a training cycle, especially for my athletes who are working toward longer distances. I know that I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I'm just going to break down race goals for a second. So many of my runners have an A goal race that we are working toward. For example, a big half marathon or a marathon goal. But depending on where we're starting from, that goal, that A race can be 3, 4, 6 months away or even longer. And it can just feel like, hey, that's really far away, and I need something in the more immediate time range to be excited about because it's so far off for this other goal. So, having a stepping stone race on the calendar, I'll call it a B race, can be a great way to build confidence, test your fitness, and help you to stay motivated, especially if you enjoy races. So, think about that. If you've got a longer distance on your calendar a couple months away, maybe think about doing a 10K in the near future just to keep you motivated, keep things fun, give you that race experience without having the extra stress on your body and without adding too much extra time to your already busy life. And then the last C is community. So I think it builds community. Many local 10Ks are super fun, very well supported, and it's a great way to connect with other runners. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing my Philly 10K shirt. This is a great run that we have here in Philadelphia. It just happened last month. And there are lots of other 10Ks. It's not as common of a distance as a 5K, for example, but if you go onto that website that I talk about all the time, runningintheusa.com, type in 10K and what time period you're looking at and where you're looking at, and I guarantee you'll be able to find something. It's not as common as a 5K, but they're still pretty common and they're super fun. The other thing I want to mention about community, shout out to my Run Disney friends and family. So 10Ks are part of many of the Run Disney races, and most of those race weekends have a series of runs. So it would either be a 5K, 10K half marathon, 5K, 10K, 10 miler. In January, we've got the marathon weekend, which is 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon. And what I like about it is that you can choose your own adventure. So you can be a part of this Run Disney family without having to maybe commit to the really long distance up front. So I've done some of my own personal challenges with this where I will do two of the three races of the weekend. During marathon weekend, I've done the 10K and the marathon so that I get a day off in between. And I will say also that the 10K is now my mom's favorite race distance. So she still has the time to train for it amidst her very busy travel schedule. She is retired and traveling the world, and I am thrilled for her. And she has done a half marathon before, but it was quite a big time commitment, and it was a little bit taxing on her body. And so, but the 10K is less of a time commitment and it's easier on the body than training for a half marathon. So, yeah, consistency, confidence, community. Now, I want to touch on a couple of misconceptions about the 10K that you may have heard. So, one of them is, oh, a 10K is just a long 5K. And yes, so it's double the distance, right? A 5K is 3.1 miles, a 10K is 6.2, but it actually requires a different pacing strategy and a different training strategy. If you try to hold your 5K pace for the 10K distance, it's not going to feel good. It's you're going to be huffing and puffing and you're going to be like, Coach Michelle, that was terrible. Why did you tell me to sign up for this race distance? So, yes, it is a different animal and it requires a different way to look at it. So the second misconception is that it's not a serious distance, whatever that means. But I will say that all distances of running can be a serious distance. So there are people who train for a large part of their lives to be the fastest at a mile, running a mile, right? And a 10K is an Olympic distance event, and it's one of the most strategic races that you can run. And so I will dispel any myth about it not being a serious distance. I think any distance can be serious if you train for it the right way and you learn the appropriate pacing. We can definitely be serious about it, and it's a serious distance. And then the third one would be I need tons of time to train for it. So I think I've hopefully dispelled that one already, but I think that you can do it in as little as 3 days a week of running with a smart training plan. Now, some practical tips if you're considering a 10K that I want to share with you. This is kind of if you are a beginner runner or an experienced runner. So hear me out for both of these types of runners. For both sets of runners, for all types of runners, easy pace is going to be key. So, I talk about this all the time. Easy runs, conversation pace runs are key. For my beginners, if you're running 3 days a week, all of those runs are going to be at your easy conversational pace. One of the three runs will be a longer run that I usually schedule on the weekend to help you build the distance that you need to cover the 6.2 miles on race day. For my experienced and advanced runners, usually you're running 4 days a week or more, and one of those days will be a dedicated speed work session. And so, what I mean by that, for the 10K distance, we want to concentrate on doing intervals at lactate threshold. As I was talking about before in the sciencey section, this is the speed that we're training at for the 10K. If you have questions on how to figure out what that interval workout looks like for you and what that pace is for you, please reach out and DM me. I would be happy to help you with this. It would be a little bit too deep of a dive to go down on this podcast right in the moment. So if you have personal questions about it, please reach out. Happy to help. Now, the long run. So the long run is going to be one of those runs during the week, whether you're in the beginner or experienced runner category. The long run is going to be a gradual build. And for my beginners, I aim to get to about 5 to 6 miles. It depends. It depends on the person. It depends where we're starting from, what our base is, if we're coming from the couch or not, if we're using run walk or continuous running. But general rule, I want to get you close to the race distance. It does not mean that you have to cover 6.2 miles in training to be able to do 6.2 miles on race day. So know that. And then for my experienced runners, we're probably going to go above that. Again, depending on schedule, timing, paces, goals. These are all the questions that go into writing a customized training plan and figuring out personalized coaching as it works for each of my runners. So to quickly recap why I love the 10K, it is short enough to fit the training into a busy life, but it is long enough to feel like a meaningful accomplishment. And it's a great bridge from the 5K distance to the half marathon distance. If it feels like too much of a jump there, it may be, but the 10K is a great bridge. Now, who it's for, again, all types of runners, beginners and experienced runners alike. This distance has a lot to offer. It is a fun challenge. It helps to build our ability to run longer distances, but also we can tailor it to work on speed work and get faster if that is desired. And it's just a super fun time. It builds confidence, consistency, and community. From the science perspective, the reason why we do it is to build our aerobic efficiency and a reminder that all of those training adaptations that we gain from the 10K benefit shorter races from the 5K all the way up to those longer ones like the half and the full marathon. So the training that we do at this specific distance helps for all of the other distances as well. It is not just a longer 5K. It actually requires different pacing and a different training strategy. And the 10K it's just a great sweet spot race. It builds fitness, confidence, and consistency. So hopefully I've made my case for why the 10K is an awesome distance. And if this episode got you excited about running a 10K, I want to invite you to join me inside my 10K Your Way program, which just opened up this week. It is a 6-week training program with 2 tracks. So choose your own adventure. There's one for beginners and one for more experienced runners. And we'll have group calls for support and accountability, as well as some in-person runs if you are local to the Philadelphia area. A portion of the proceeds is going to an organization that is near and dear to my heart. The Students Run Philly Style, which helps to make running accessible for teens in our city of Philly. We start training September 22nd, and you can find all of the details and the link to register for that in the show notes. I would love to have you, whether you are local to the area or if you will run with us virtually, would love to have you. You are welcome to join us. So wherever you are in your running journey, I hope that you'll give the 10K a try. You might just find that it's your new favorite distance. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week.
Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the podcast so that we can reach and encourage others to tie on their sneakers and join us out there on a run. See you next time.